I'm a slave for your ear. I'll die to make what you hear great.
And did you ever think, am I a good role model? You know, am I a good example for people on how to live their lives?
I'm not an example for people on how to live their lives, and never in my life would I ever set out to be an example for people on how to live their lives. If you need an example for how to live, then you just shouldn't have been born.
You know, I've never been one for features. I remember just being like, yo, this project, like, I really want Wayne on it. I didn't want to get him on some, like, swag shit, like, with him, like, just rapping and talking shit and stunting. Like, my favorite Wayne is, like, introspective Wayne, you know? It's, like, talking about some shit. But no matter how deep he goes, or just, like, him slowing down for a little bit and just, like, talking.
My life matter, especially to my
I am hip-hop. And I ain't dead, I'm alive.
Lawbreeze and Gentlegrams, the Martian made moments in 2008, now naysayers saying he was never even great? April Fool's, Lawbreeze and Gentlegrams, I'm still in my fall-off era thanks to J. Cole, and the rhyming intros are retired, for now. Drop a comment if you want them back, or if you're happy they're gone.
I study
Rapaholics
for a living.
It was a cold Canadian fall in 2006, and a 10-year-old Rapaholics went to the CD store with his amazing mother, who allowed him to purchase the clean version of Lil Wayne's CD, The Carter 2. He asked her, why is there a label on certain CDs that say parental advisory explicit content? What does explicit content mean? Oh, this was actually a year later when Rapaholics bought Graduation by Kanye West, and she specifically quoted the intro off that album when Kanye raps, "Good morning, look at the valedictorians, scared of their future while I hop in a DeLorean. Scared to face the future, complacent career students, some people graduate but they're still stupid." And she said, they put that little sticker on the album so that kids like you, impressionable minds, can't hear these artists who have it all talk about the advantages to not pursuing a college degree and getting a safe job.
After all of that, you receive this. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Kanye.
Shut the f*** up.
Now, I think that sticker really more so applied to later Kanye bars like, if I just F this model and she just bleached her butthole and I get it on my t-shirt, I'ma feel like a butthole. But that conversation always stuck with me, and I feel like it reflects what we're hearing right now in terms of discourse around Lil Wayne. Because recently, Lil Russell, really dope rapper from California, he was speaking on how when he was a kid, like most of us, he was so infatuated with Lil Wayne as a rapper, but as he grew older, matured, and gained new perspective and values on life, he realized that a lot of what Lil Wayne rapped about didn't have a lot of substance behind it, and if anything could have been negatively impacting the youth.
What up, though? One of the homies put me on Wayne, and it was like bars. I used to have a notebook, just bars.
What was your introduction to Wayne?
So there's two introductions to Wayne.
Yeah.
There's an introduction to Wayne that's through culture and your parents that you have no merit in.
Right.
And then there's an introduction when you get to like dive. And mine's, I think it was like the Drought 2. And that was like my reintroduction to like, man, dedication mixtapes, the droughts. Like I just got immersed.
No ceilings.
Man, this was pre no ceilings.
Yeah.
I mean, the Carter 1 and Carter 2 were amazing.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're like positively talking about Lil Wayne, because our last guest shit on Lil Wayne so hard.
I love Wayne so much, but I understand how someone could be like, man, this isn't the Wayne that like I remember. You
Right.
know?
No.
I had a moment in my journey where I had grew a disdain for Wayne just because I started listening to everything. Like I started maturing as a human, and I'm like, damn, this wasn't talking about nothing.
Huh?
For a long time, and like as someone who like grew up in these communities,
Right.
and grew up with homies who I seen want to be Bloods because they following Wayne and want to be gangster and want to shoot all the gun bar and shit.
Right.
Like I've seen the negative that he contributed to the community, and I had to look like, man, what are the songs where he really talked about something and gave? And out of 1,000-song catalog, you know, it's minute on this end.
It's like Georgia Bush.
And that do bother me. Man, Tie My Hands.
That's
One
what
of
I
the
was
greatest
gonna say.
records
Tie My
ever,
Hands
right?
is the only one I
and
could
that,
think
and,
of.
and that's the thing. It's like if I hug you once, but I slap the shit out you 1,000 times, you know, your affinity for me is going. You're probably gonna remember me for this. And a lot of people don't. You know, as I mature, a lot of my old favorite artists, I'm now like, damn.
What up, though?
I love you because I learned how to rap to you, but when you look at the contribution, it's like, man. But he was also a kid.
Yeah,
Wayne
this
was
is
a
true.
kid.
He was like 14, 15 when he came
Man,
out.
a kid.
Like, you know, because think about it, he was dropped out of school at 13 years
Yes.
old. Like,
Right.
You know, you're just like...
And he was adopted by gangsters,
Yeah.
indoctrinated to a whole
Adopted
system.
by the
who-
projects, yeah.
It was like he gave everything he could, and I love Wayne.
Now, I think this is a really interesting conversation to be had, but also quite sad in a certain sense. Now, I said in a previous video, as someone who's been very critical of Wayne's music and moves over the last 2 years, as someone who, like most people in 2026, may suffer some recency bias just because of how reactionary and fast the internet moves, but someone who also grew up on Wayne, right? Who the first CD I ever bought with my own allowance was a Wayne CD. I've been emphasizing that I think it's important that even if Wayne gives us 10 more Carter 6s, even if Wayne cries for 20 more years during 20 different Super Bowl halftime shows that he was not able to perform at, we should still never forget the monumental run that Wayne went on, his impact on music as we know it, and the positives he brought to the game through his music and his message. Let's not forget that Lil Wayne put out his first album almost 31 years ago. Yes, 30 with a 3. Rapper BG, who was going by Lil Dougie at the time, collaborated with Lil Wayne, who was going by Baby D at the time, who was 12 years old, and they released a project together on Cash Money Records called True Story in July of 1995.
Yes, my brother. I'm Baby D from that grown motherfucker.
I say that to say, if you want to talk about Wayne not having any real substance or not talking about anything positive within his music for the most part, you have to look at two different factors. A, he's been doing this for 30 freaking years, right? Has given us thousands of songs. We can dissect, and we will dissect, the ratio of, positive versus negative songs. But keep in mind, the man has thousands of songs that have been released, right? And then on top of that, I just showed you guys, he released his first album when he was 12 years old. This is a man who was then a kid and got brought into the industry before he could ever experience any real world issues for himself. So sometimes when you hear Wayne speak on certain things, whether it's in the music or outside the music, it's just kind of important to note that you're listening to the perspectives and thoughts of a man who has lived a very sheltered and unique lifestyle, right? So obviously the way he views and raps about world issues is going to be very different than someone who actually experienced those issues firsthand. With that in mind, that doesn't excuse him for having no substance or sometimes saying things that are just flat out wrong.
I am a young, black, rich. If that don't let you know that America understand black matter these days, I don't know what it is. Don't come at me with that dumb man. My life matter, especially to my.
But ultimately, Lil Wayne is a very unique case, and with all that he's given to hip-hop, to music as a whole, 30 plus years devoting his life to this craft. As we dissect his catalog, I don't think it's fair to say that Lil Wayne has contributed a net negative to the genre or that he was never talking about anything.
The Lil Wayne disrespect is getting out of hand. You have rappers on podcasts trying to say Lil Wayne has no substance or Lil Wayne would lose to T.I. in the verses. Let's talk substance. Pray to the Lord, Something You Forgot, Georgia Bush, Tie My Hands, Trouble, Gossip. He got on an Outkast track and out-substance Outkast. Jay-Z retired, Nas tried to say hip-hop was dead and Lil Wayne kept it relevant, cooking their asses on songs like Last of a Dying Breed or Beat Without Bass. And while Wayne was giving us elite lyricism, on the side he created a whole subgenre of hip-hop with his leaned-out harmony. What Wayne did with auto-tune and songs like Me and My Drink is as influential as what Kanye did with 808s, I don't care. Young Thug and his children don't exist without Wayne. Carti's last 2 albums are a direct product of Lil Wayne. Rebirth, despite getting a negative reception, created modern rage music. Songs like I Feel Like Dying and his verse on Gorilla Zoe's Lost created artists like Lucky. Drake was a conscious rapper Trey Songz hybrid until Wayne signed him and took him under his wing. Kendrick Lamar was out here making Carter 3 remakes and admiring Wayne cook up on songs like All My Life with J-Rock. Wayne was so dominant that he had people memorizing Mac Main and Birdman verses. Wayne did any and everything. He started rapping in patois at one point. I hate the fake pretentious rap fans who act like substance needs to sound like preposterous proportions. I never needed endorsements. You could put your favorite rapper in a chamber for 10 years and tell them to make a song that's as elite as the Dedication 6 intro. It would just be time wasted. Stop the Wayne disrespect. He's better than your favorite rapper.
I definitely agree with a lot of the points this guy made right here, but I think two things can be true at once. And what I mean by that is when you say, Wayne lacks substance, can you even define substance? Like, what does substance mean? The real definition of substance is like water in a bottle, fluids and organs in your body. The protons and neutrons and molecules and electrons and all that crap that's in physical, tangible objects, right?
I study crap battles for a living.
But when you define substance in terms of lyrics in music, like where do we draw the line, right? Is substance defined by lyrical depth, like how far you'll go into exploring different rhyme schemes, metaphors, how thought-provoking your wordplay is? Or do we take it a step further and say, artists only really have substance when they're bringing an element of either social commentary, storytelling, or, some emotion or vulnerability that goes beyond the typical superficial themes that we see not just in rap music, but, a lot of pop music in general, from money, partying, intercourse, etc., right? And then if we want to take it one step further, all right, I think Wayne personally checks off every single box of things that I just mentioned, criteria that could constitute substance within music. But what LaRussell was saying, and the core of this debate is, was that substance within Wayne's music a net positive for his listeners, right? Were the stories he was telling, the complex punchlines, rhyme schemes, the times that he opened up and got vulnerable on records, or told stories or had commentary about his city, his people, the world, etc., was he coming from a place of, let me try and deliver a positive message here? And if that was his goal, was he successful in doing so?
I start maturing as a human, and I'm like, damn, this wasn't talking about nothing. All the gun bar and shit. Right. Like, I've seen the negative that he contributed to the community, and I had to look like, man, what are the songs where he really talked about something and gave? And out of a 1,000-song catalog, it's minute on this end.
Well, it's kind of unclear, right? Because on one end, Wayne's main goal, his top priority for like 10 years of his career was to be known as the best rapper alive, right? And I think that he studied the game enough to know that being the best rapper stretches far and long beyond just being a great writer, right? I mean, Wayne really only became the best rapper alive and started calling himself that once he realized that his idol, Jay-Z, never wrote his rhymes down. So Wayne was literally not writing, right? And then Wayne was only taken seriously as the quote-unquote best rapper alive when he had kind of hit his commercial peak in around 2007, 2008, which was another factor beyond just writing that made him the greatest rapper, right? It was all that success and influence and impact that he was having.
I am hip-hop. And I ain't dead, I'm alive.
I say that to say, when Wayne set out on that mission to become the best rapper alive, I think he knew that part of that title meant that he'd be looked at as a thought leader, someone who moves the culture forward, and therefore you have to come with not just sonic, but also lyrical diversity. And you most definitely got that from Wayne, right? Like, at the height of him being the best rapper alive, he literally made a song where he was cosplaying as a doctor, pretending to save hip-hop and save these quote-unquote whack rappers who were on their deathbed. And ironically, with all this talk about Wayne's substance kind of being a negative impact on the youth, literally in this song, one piece of advice that he gives rappers is to quote-unquote watch what we say. Because the kids do watch. Gotta work every day, gotta not be cliche, gotta stand out like Andre 3K, gotta kick it like a sensei. And just to go back to that story I told you guys earlier on in this video, just like LaRussell and probably many of you guys watching, I was a kid growing up during Lil Wayne's prime years, right? And while there was a lot of music, a lot of CDs that my mom probably didn't approve of, but was nice enough to let me listen to in her car while she drove me to school or wherever, Dr. Carter, that was one of several Lil Wayne songs that she was even able to appreciate as well when she heard me playing it in the car. Like, she'll still bring it up to this day, like, yeah, Lil Wayne, that's the one who pretended to be a doctor on that song, right? She loves a Millie too, but that's beside the point.
Oh, Lil Wayne's just too good. Oh, Lil Wayne's just too good.
Anyways, I say that to say it was obvious with songs like Dr. Carter and a lot of other records from this time period that Wayne was well aware of what it took to be the best rapper alive, and part of that was having substance, and beyond just having substance, you had to have some sort of positive message or influence within your music and challenge yourself to touch on more complex concepts, to speak on real world issues, to open up more, get more emotional. And so we saw that from Wayne. People who really followed his career closely are probably really angry on Twitter right now and would tell you that they felt that from Wayne.
Born in New Orleans, raised in New Orleans, I will forever remain faithful New Orleans.
But at the same time, when you look at his mainstream career, like if you did give Wayne one of those Super Bowl halftime type of performances where he can only perform like his biggest, most iconic songs, you're going to get a lot of subject matter related to kitty cats, money, violence, guns, etc. So for someone kind of just looking at the grand scope of Wayne's career and his monstrous run from a surface level, you're going to say, yeah, he never really had much substance, right? And a lot of the substance was negative. And I really say this is a very interesting conversation because it poses so many different questions, like some that we don't even have time in this video to fully touch on, like things like what makes substance positive or negative, right? Like when Wayne's rapping about his drug addiction, is he telling people to go do drugs, or is he just documenting and really opening up about these struggles that he's endured? Hustler music, when he's talking about, you know, going out and getting it by any means necessary, can that be viewed as a violent call to action or as a motivational anthem for people who maybe grew up in similar conditions to, I'm assuming, a lot of Wayne's childhood friends in New Orleans or the, you know, hustlers that he was surrounded by at Cash Money Records?
With my daddy on my mind, how the hell you ain't here to see your prince do his thing? Sometimes I wanna drop a tip, but no emotions from a king.
The same way when we look at 50's career, right? When you look at Eminem's greatest years, there was a lot of struggle, a lot of pain in those lyrics, right? But that derived from real experiences in these rappers' lives. And it's a skill in and of itself to be able to document such dark moments or thoughts or stories in such a beautiful way. But back to Wayne and if, you know, he ever had substance or if he was a negative influence or not. See, why I had said it was a double-edged sword is because while Wayne definitely understood what it took to be the best rapper alive and had many, if not all, of the components of it, at the same time, at the height of his career, Wayne made it very clear that he did not intend on being a positive role model for anyone other than his 2 kids.
Do you ever think, God, I have a 10-year-old daughter
And a 2-month-old son.
and did you ever think, am I a good role model? You know, am I a good example for people on how to live their lives?
I'm not an example for people on how to live their lives, and never in my life would I ever set out to be an example for people on how to live their lives. If you need an example for how to live, then you just shouldn't have been born. And I am a great role model because I'm only a role model for 2, and that's all. So won't you worry about yours and let them worry about theirs. I got mine.
And on a side note, he now has 3 kids, and it does seem like he did an absolutely amazing job at being a positive role model towards them. It's insane to watch them on this podcast together. Like, they all kind of look like their own little version of Wayne, and you can tell they're very bright. Like, he definitely did a good job raising them.
Dog Dad being Lil Wayne, was it hard making friends?
My first impression of school was difficult because, like, I would walk around and hear, like, oh, that's Wade's son. And, like, I was little, so I didn't really get it, and I didn't like it. But, like, once,
You
like...
didn't like it? Sorry.
No, I didn't.
I loved it.
Oh, well,
I was like, yes, I am Lil Wayne's daughter. Yes, everybody, get the cameras out.
Now, if you ask me personally, I definitely think Wayne has substance, and just growing up as a kid listening to his music, there were a lot of positive elements that I took from it. Were there negative ones too? Absolutely. Did things go wrong at a certain point? Absolutely. But 3 decades in, we're all human, alright? There are going to be some mistakes along the way. And as someone, again, who was a child when Wayne was hitting his peak, buying the Carter 2 at like 9 years old, the first CD I ever owned that could be played on my own time, paid for it by my own dime, all during Wayne's own prime, you'd be a bold line, old fried fool to think that listening to Wayne's output from those peak years, 06 to like 09, that you couldn't get as much positive as you could negative out of his catalog.
What up, though?
That's just my opinion, but hip-hop has kind of been turning on Wayne, and I don't think that's for no random reason at all. So we are going to play devil's advocate here and understand how we even got to the point where people are saying that this 30-plus year career spawned, you know, like 90% negativity. So to understand, you know, both sides of this coin, as someone who followed Wayne's career very, very closely, I do think that there was a period of time around 2012 where he got so rich off his music, off Drake and Nicki's music, coupled with the fact that he now had 3 kids to raise, and like he told you before, he wasn't trying to be a good role model to anyone except for them.
And I am a gangster. And I am a great role model because I'm only a role model for 2. And that's all.
It was really around 2012 where we saw Wayne really detach himself from any real public issues, tragedies, social injustices, politics. I mean, we saw that in Wayne's music, and we also saw that in interviews. It was ironically a reporter asking about Wayne's daughter, one of the only people in the world that Wayne cares to be a positive influence for, when he got triggered into saying what was probably the most negative thing he has maybe ever said in his entire career, which is when he basically completely dismissed the Black Lives Matter movement.
What's your thought on Black Lives Matter?
What is it? What do you mean?
The idea is that there's this movement called Black Lives Matter, thinking that the rest of America didn't seem to understand that.
Just sounds weird. I didn't know that you put a name on it. It's not a whatever. It's somebody got shot by police for a reason. I am a young, black, rich. If that don't let you know that America understand Black matter these days, I don't know what it is. Don't come at me with that dumb man. My life matter, especially to my I don't feel connected to a damn thing that ain't got nothing to do with me.
To further emphasize how sheltered and luxurious the lifestyle Wayne was living at the time and how detached he was from what was going on in the real world, I believe it was in that same year that he did another interview where he said that based on white people's reception towards his music, it had led him to believe that there was no such thing as racism.
Where are we in the United States of America in race relations?
They wouldn't want to ask me that. They wouldn't want my answer to represent it because I have never dealt with racism, and I'm glad I didn't have to. Not only did I thought it was over, I still believe it's over, but obviously it is. When I look out and I come up off the stage, when I'm coming out the bottom of the stage of my show, when I'm on tour, and I open my eyes and I see everybody. I don't have this type of crowd or that type. My crowd has always been everybody, thank God.
I shot myself. Police knocked on the door. I was right there. Everybody jumped over my body to go get the guns and drugs, whatever they could find. It took one guy to stop and cuss everybody that hopped over me out. Like, what the f are y'all doing? Do you not see this kid on the floor with this hole in his chest? Said, you drive. Pick me up. Brought me to the hospital. He brought me to the hospital room. He was white as snow. The that hopped over me was blacker than me. My life was saved by a white man. I don't know what racism is. I know a good name Uncle Bob, though.
And I'll give you guys this, like, after the Carter 4, if you want to say that the substance in Wayne's music fell off a cliff after that, or that, like, 90% of the subject matter in his music after the Carter 4 was negative, I can maybe agree with you there. Like, again, this guy being the best rapper alive to me for so many years, it was very hard for me to defend I'm Not a Human Being 2 when highlights off the project included My Tongue is a Uzi, My D is an AK, or Dedication 5. After, Dedication 2, we start hearing bars like Had a phone in jail, that's a cell phone. But to me, this was far after his prime, and in this period, I get it. This is when we started getting a lot more, kitty cat talk from Wayne in the music. Spicy. But this was really new in 2012. Like, he was never talking about the P word this much in his music until I'm Not a Human Being 2. Like, yeah, he had the occasional song, P word monster, but ironically, I had the version of the Carter 3 that had the song Playing with Fire. Drop a comment if you remember that song. So that song was actually an interpolation of a Rolling Stones song called Play with Fire, and they actually got sued for that song being on the Carter 3, so they replaced it with P-Word Monster. So as a kid, I never even heard that P-Word Monster song. I've heard people point to that song as a prime example of Wayne, not really talking about much, but the irony is that the P-Word song replaced Playing with Fire, which is a song that has one of Wayne's most heartfelt, darkest performances in his entire career, rapping bars like forced into evil, it's all in your head, it's also cerebral, call me Knievel, you follow and I lead you straight to the needles, the bottles, the battles, the Beatles will eat you, mama named Sita, I love you Sita, remember when your P-word second husband tried to beat ya, remember when I went into the kitchen, got the cleaver, he ain't give a F, I ain't give a F either, he could see the devil in my features, he could smell the ether, but you can see Sita in my features and she don't play neither. That was a little tangent to highlight and emphasize what I said before, in that if you weren't following Wayne's career really closely, then you would have probably heard P-word monster instead of bars like this, right? And that's actually a repeated theme in a lot of aspects of Wayne's career that we'll touch on shortly. But let's go back to 2012, because again, this is when I still loved Wayne's music, just for different reasons, right? I would have never defended him as still having that best rapper alive title by 2012, because just the bare subject matter that he brought forth didn't merit that compared to, you know, let's say a Kendrick Lamar who had just dropped Good Kid, Mad City. I don't even think he was comparing to like a Kanye or a Jay-Z, who at that same period of time were kind of in the later stages of their careers. But with Wayne, it's interesting because even when, in my opinion, the subject matter kind of took a nosedive with that I'm Not a Human Being 2 and all the P-word bars that came with it, this is around the time when Wayne becomes more impactful and influential than ever before, right? And a lot of people will say that it's not just the subject matter in the music that's negative, but it's also the influence he had on the culture that was negative, right? The excessive lean drinking, walking around with the double cup everywhere, the tattoos all over your face, that makes it hard to get, you know, a corporate job. The excessive weed smoking, the excessive auto-tune. Okay, you could look at that as all negatives, but even by this point when Wayne is past his primes, there are still a lot of positives that I believe he contributed to not just hip-hop, but the world in general. I mean, I think he made the youth more inspired to skateboard during his whole truck fit era. He was literally building skate parks in his hometown.
I mean, you know, us as New Orleanians, we looked at it as just another hurricane. It wasn't. It wasn't just another hurricane. Now I built a skate park there. In the neighborhood, I built it in the neighborhood that was hit the hardest. To give them something to do.
If anything represents hope, this does it in a huge way.
I looked out the window and there was a bunch of kids with skateboards saying, can we come in? I know for a fact that 6 months ago, that kid didn't know what a skateboard did look like anything.
I think, like Wayno put it, you know, Young Money kind of aged like milk, but if you look at their overall contribution to hip-hop, I still think that's a net positive, right? I think Nicki Minaj hitting the commercial heights that she did and standing her ground on records with legends like Jay-Z and Kanye West really laid the groundwork, the blueprint or the pink print, the foundation, and kicked the doors down for the next generation of female artists to hit heights that we hadn't really seen before Nicki. Cardi B, Lotto, Megan Thee Stallion, whoever, I think they're able to be looked at in the same category as, you know, a lot of the biggest male MCs today because of the foundation Nicki laid. I could be wrong on that. I don't think I am. And then with Drake, I mean, yeah, there's some negatives you could say in terms of how he
study rap battles for a living.
There's some negatives you could say in terms of how he kind of set this standard within hip-hop, at least from like the label's perspective, that you're not really an asset to them if you don't know how to sing as well. And because of the incorporation of these melodies, lyrics kind of took a backseat in mainstream hip-hop for a while. But at the same time, I mean, you do have to look at the positives as well. Drake, being from Canada, broke a lot of records that Canadian rappers had never really seen, right? I mean, not to get on too far of a tangent here, but before Drake, it was Cardinal Offishall who had the, you know, highest charting song in the US from a Canadian rapper of all time, and Drake within his like second year in the game pretty much beat that record. And then of course he never looked back.
Yo, shout out to all the 12-year-olds in the building. What's up? Huh?
And just like Nicki, who I feel like helped female MCs be taken more seriously as a whole, I feel like Drake definitely helped Canada be taken more seriously as a whole as well, right? I mean, don't forget, he also gave us The Weeknd and PARTYNEXTDOOR. Who knows where they would be if Drake hadn't, you know, taken a lot of their music and put it on his own albums early on in their careers.
Spicy.
All right, guys, so very long tangent, all just to say that I do think Young Money was definitely a net positive on music as a whole. And that was, of course, all conceived and executed by Lil Wayne. And it's here again when I'm talking about, you know, after Wayne's prime. During Wayne's prime, I'll defend it every day that there was a lot of positive messaging within his music. After his prime, I think you have to dig deeper into the influence that he had on the game to really see where he did truly have his positive impact. So that's kind of what we're doing here. Because you also have to look at the fact that once Wayne kind of, I don't want to say fell off, because still, again, as an MC, like technically he's still an incredible lyricist, but again, once he really kind of came home from Rikers Island, kind of got a lot more sheltered, rich, you could kind of start saying the substance wasn't as prevalent in the music at that point.
What up, though?
Hello, Weezy, welcome home. And I'm a blunt blowing, polo draw showing.
But at that same point, you can't take away from the positive impact that Wayne had during this period, right? I mean, every great of the generation after Wayne took something from him. Future. You're not going to tell me that Future's sound wasn't an evolution of a blueprint that Wayne created? Then on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, you had guys like Mac Miller, legendary, rest in peace. He had said that in 2012, he wanted Wayne. This is, again, Wayne after his prime, when you're getting a lot of P-word talk. Mac Miller specifically wanted him on a song where Wayne wasn't just, talking his crap, but instead getting introspective, because Mac said that his favorite type of Wayne was that introspective, deep, emotional Wayne. So like I told you guys before in this video, if you were following Wayne's career very closely, you were a real diehard fan of his, then you were well aware that there were plenty songs in his catalog full of substance.
I've never been one for features. Like, I've never had that on my project. That's never been a part of my career. It's cosigns and things like that. But I remember just being like, yo, this project, like, I really want Wayne on it. I was like, I just want him on it. Like, I just think that me and him would make a dope song. And, like, I didn't want to get him on some, like, swag shit, like, with him, like, just rapping and talking shit and stunting. Like, my favorite Wayne is, like, introspective Wayne, It's, like, talking about some shit. But no matter how deep he goes, or just like him slowing down for a little bit and just like talking. So I was like, I need to do a jam like that. So I'm making a song and I'm like, this is perfect for him.
And it wasn't just rappers from the later generation. You had rappers that came before Wayne, like Eminem, who had said that Wayne's verses on Mona Lisa, which is a song, again, released like 5-6 years past his prime, deserved to be in the Hall of Fame for some of the greatest verses of all time.
Never got a chance to tell you, but yo, Mona Lisa,
yeah,
your 2 verses on that shit gotta be like, it's gotta be like one of the like top 5 verses of all time. It's definitely an art to this, and man, you got it mastered, and you've
likewise.
I mean,
man.
you've had it mastered, but
man, likewise, man.
What about what Andre 3000 had to say about Wayne? The rap game has to save itself. Everybody's saving it. People like Lil Wayne are saving it. He's bringing energy to it. And in terms of Wayne saving hip-hop, like Andre 3000 said, I think that's no more evident than the influence that he had on the next generation. I mean, you had guys like A$AP Rocky saying, are we forgetting that Wayne made everyone switch up their flow and start using the E's and the R's, like I'm irregular, segular? Like, come on, are we forgetting that Wayne changed hip-hop too? Are we forgetting that he made all these mother effers want to have tattoos? Are we forgetting that? This is the guy who went from being the underdog in his crew to saving his company and saving his daddy, Birdman. I'm not a effing Lil Wayne D-Rider. I'm just speaking facts. Wayne is one of the greatest of all time. You also had Big Sean say that Lil Wayne changed the game and isn't just someone that he listened to heavily or viewed as a rap legend, but also someone that you gotta look up to. Chance the Rapper said Lil Wayne is probably the biggest reason why I'm even rapping right now. Then you got a completely different style of artist in Chief Keef, who had said that he had quote unquote never had the words like Lil Wayne, but he always said his whole life that he was gonna be just like Wayne.
What up, though?
Isaiah Rashad lists Wayne as one of his greatest influences. J. Cole was studying Wayne before his prime in the 03 Squad Up days. Jay Electronica was flabbergasted at the whole game becoming Wayne clones. Kanye West called Lil Wayne the #1 rapper in the world on multiple occasions and praised his work ethic. That was another massively positive inspiration that I feel like Wayne brought to the game, even years removed from his prime, even to this day, was that insane drive that he had to continue going, to continue getting better technically as an MC. That work ethic to put out mixtape after mixtape, that drive was not lost on any of your favorite rappers, including Kendrick Lamar, who literally has an entire early mixtape completely dedicated to remixing Lil Wayne's The Carter 3, from the album cover to the actual instrumentals to the flows and cadences and voices that he's using on there. I mean, I don't need to dive too deep into it because I'm sure if you guys have been following the channel, you've seen how many times Kendrick Lamar has spoken incredibly highly of Wayne, literally saying, I would say I was influenced by a certain sound and flow and cadence that Wayne brought to the game. Lil Wayne is a legend. People forget a lot of the work he put in. What he's done for hip-hop culture is phenomenal. One of the most influential artists of this generation, and he's still hungry. KRS-One called Wayne the greatest rapper of all time. Talib Kweli spoke directly to the lack of substance narrative that has been floating around really now for like almost 2 decades, right? Like, what's crazy is in 2008, during Wayne's prime, you could go on YouTube and find people saying the same thing that they're saying about Wayne today. and Talib Kweli, who is probably known first and foremost for the substance and message he brings behind his music. He was even defending Wayne's pen, saying, "I don't care what nobody said, that guy studies hip-hop. If he didn't, he wouldn't have Kanye West on his album. He wouldn't have signed Corey Guns. He wouldn't have came up to me and said, Kweli, I F with you. And he wouldn't have done a song called Dr. Carter." Again, the same song I mentioned before, which is one of the greatest songs I have ever heard. Any MCs in the house, if you have not made a record as dope as Dr. Carter, shut the F up when you're talking about Wayne. Any MCs in the house, if you ever said a line as dope as "Real G's move in silence like lasagna," shut the F up talking about Wayne. Okay, so I think that's enough, evidence to prove that while hip-hop fans might not want to acknowledge it, the foundational artists of the genre have all embraced Wayne as having not just an immense influence, but also a positive influence on hip-hop. And I didn't even get to the late 2010 rappers, right? Like that whole crop of artists who really were direct Wayne clones. Everyone from Young Thug to Trippie Redd to Lil Uzi, Gunna, Lil Baby, Playboi Carti, NBA Youngboy. Like, come on guys, what are we doing here?
What up, though? One time way back, I was talking about you in the interview and I said I know Lil Wayne inspired him. Yeah. You know how people take it the wrong way. I never meant it disrespectful. When I see you, I show you nothing but love. We Rock Nation, we family.
Well, of course, bro. You already know. You a great influencer. I look up to you, bro. I saw you every day on TV when I was growing up. That was like every day. So, of course, I never took that as any offense or any disrespect. Honestly, if you want me to be honest, look at me. Look at me. That's honestly an honor for you to say some shit like that. I'm giving that, it is that. So it's just what can I say? What can I say about that? It's look at me, bro. Just look at me and what you see. I learned Lil Wayne. I wanted to be Lil Wayne. I would talk when I was younger. Girls would say I look like Lil Wayne, so I would run with that. And I would wear the fedoras and I would wear the tight polo tees with the skinnies and wear the Vans and shit. And back then, you know what's crazy? This is why my parents on my ass that much. Back then, I ordered a fake piercing off of Amazon, and it was a magnet, and I had it right here, and I used to wear it every day like I was Lil Wayne.
And look, you could kind of say this is off topic, oh, yes, Rapaholics, we get it, you like Lil Wayne, and so do all these other artists, and they took a lot of influence from him. It doesn't mean that his music was majority positive. And again, to keep playing devil's advocate, you could say, okay, maybe it wasn't Wayne's, subject matter that influenced a Kendrick Lamar to really dive deep into societal, political, and personal issues. Maybe you could say the same for Drake. Maybe he was inspired to do that from Kanye West, right? Maybe you could say that, a lot of the guys who Wayne directly influenced actually brought a net negative to the genre, like a Young Thug or Lil Uzi or Gunna, if you want to talk about, them kind of ushering in that mumble rap sort of sound. I would disagree, but, there are people out there who say that, the influence that Wayne brought, while it was immense, it wasn't necessarily positive. And you know what? Fine. If that's what you want to believe, that's all right. But don't forget that we have only been taking a look at everything surrounding Wayne's career and his music from 2011, 2012 and onward, right? This is when Wayne, maybe wasn't offering as much subject matter wise. But now let's take a look at his prime. Let's take a look actually at the tail end of his prime, the final track off his magnum opus, the Carter 3. Yeah, I know some people will say the Carter 2 is better, it's up for debate, but that's a story for another video. See, I think if Wayne was on social media and actually did see any of the discourse surrounding his name right now, his response would be the outro that he performed on the outro track of the Carter 3, Don't Get It. See, going back to that story, I told you guys earlier in this video how, the first CD I bought was the Carter 2. From there, I was following Wayne religiously. He wasn't my introduction to hip-hop, but he was the first artist that I really felt like that deep, attachment to. That kind of sounds a little funky to say, but you guys know what I mean, right? The internet was on the rise at this time. Lil Wayne had all these leaked records, leaked mixtapes, crazy feature runs. He's everywhere on the radio and on the internet. So I'm witnessing this as a kid, right? In awe. I don't even think I had Wi-Fi at the time. It was an Ethernet cable plugged into a computer that you then had to plug in your iPod to sync into the computer with iTunes to download your songs. It was a whole mess. Anyways, a lot of tangents in this video because I'm kind of going down a little nostalgia trip, but one thing that really stuck with me around this time, right, following Wayne's career, was that outro on the track Don't Get It, because as some at the time, like 11-year-old sheltered kid from Canada, this Wayne interlude taught me more about racial inequality within America and within the prison system than I had ever learned from any history class, any book, anything at the time. On the track, Wayne's reacting to this TV segment he saw on the news about racial disparities in incarceration, highlighting how black Americans, especially young men, are disproportionately jailed, often for crack cocaine offenses tied to heavy policing in poor neighborhoods. He argues that it would cost less to just send them to college. He questions the drug laws and why low-level offenders fill prisons instead of violent criminals, and expresses concerns as a father about S-offenders living in communities. Like, I vividly remember listening to this outro as a kid, being mind-blown by the way that Wayne kind of ties in the whole duality behind the fact that if you come from a low-income neighborhood, odds are there's going to be a higher police presence, which will lead to more arrests being made, typically for low-level crime that was committed as a means to escape the poverty. Meanwhile, you have real offenders, in Wayne's view, not proportionally represented properly in these prisons, but unlike the guy selling crack, these S-offenders did not have to sell illegal narcotics to make their way into higher income neighborhoods. And he finishes that segment off saying, "The reason why he lives next door to me ain't the reason why I live next door to him," meaning he didn't rap his way to get to my effing neighborhood. He sold crack to get to my neighborhood. You move him out, bring him to jail for life, and then you move in the S-offender. Then give me a paper saying he's a S-offender. Is that a misunderstanding? Because I don't understand it. And I said that this would probably be Wayne's response to all the discourse going on around him today, not because this, little outro here is proof that Wayne most definitely does touch on heavy concepts, but it's actually where Wayne takes this outro next that I feel would be the exact same response we would see Wayne give his critics today. See, he directs his attention to Mr. Al Sharpton, who is a civil rights activist and radio talk show host. At the time, he had been, quote-unquote, leading marches against the use of the N-word, the B-word, and H-words, and had even said after Wayne released this song that it's not worth dignifying a response to one rap artist who, quote-unquote, doesn't even say anything substantive. The exact same thing we're hearing today, right? 18 years ago, even during Wayne's peak, you had guys like Al Sharpton saying that Wayne wasn't saying anything of substance. But he definitely packed some pretty substantial bars for Mr. Sharpton on this record, see, because Wayne shifts from discussing systemic issues to a personal critique of Al Sharpton. He says he doesn't respect Sharpton because he believes Al Sharpton represents a type of public figure who criticizes and quote-unquote speculates before they informate, meaning that they form public opinions about people without first trying to understand them directly. And Wayne frames this as a failure of quote-unquote good humanity. He argues that criticizing someone without attempting dialogue reflects bad character traits, even if it doesn't automatically make someone a bad person. Now, Wayne acknowledges himself that all humans are both good and bad, including himself, admitting that some of the things he says and does might be bad, or just quote-unquote not too good. But Wayne says he himself tries to at least stay on the good side, implying that Al Sharpton does not make that same effort. He compares Al Sharpton to Don King, implying that guys who are criticizing Wayne, similar to Al Sharpton, are really just kind of media-driven, performative, self-promotional, lacking the moral weight or the, as Wayne put it, quote-unquote good humanity of earlier civil rights activists like Jesse Jackson or Martin Luther King. And overall, Wayne's point is not just political, but it's also personal to him. He's rejecting the public judgment from people who don't know him, and he's asserting that outside criticism is ultimately meaningless to him if you're not going to try to understand him. And he ends off this entire project by embracing being misunderstood, reinforcing his belief that people like Al Sharpton miscategorize him without truly understanding where he comes from, which, as he puts it, is a guy living in the suburbs who came from the hood. So I just thought this song definitely was a powerful statement to encapsulate a lot of the criticisms Wayne's faced with today. I think he left out a key part in that he's not just, a guy who came from the hood and is now living in the suburbs. He's a guy who has been rapping professionally for 30 plus years, surrounded by studios and record label executives since he was like 12 years old, right? It's going to be hard for Wayne to relate to the world and for the world to relate to Wayne. But does that mean there's no substance in his music? Does that mean we should look at his catalog as an overall net negative to the influence that it had on the next generation? I mean, guys, Wayne put out his first solo album, I think the year I was born. And even on projects like that, when Wayne was just about 15 or 16 years old, he still had highly meaningful songs like F the World. The year after that, on his second album, Lights Out, he had songs like Everything, where he reflects on his stepfather who he just lost.
I know I can't be close to you, Pop, I know you watching over me, Pop, I know.
On the Carter 1, he gives us one of the best breakup songs of all times with Miss My Dogs, reflecting on the group members that he just lost. On the Carter 2, we Get Over, where he reflects on more loved ones that he's lost. On Dedication 2, we get Georgia Bush, where he reflects on the structure of his city being lost. Even as late as the Carter 5, you had extremely heartfelt songs like Open Letter or Let It All Work Out, where Wayne reflects on how he was almost lost. His life was almost lost. Now, remember how earlier in this video I mentioned, like, a big reason why, casual Wayne fans might not realize he has a lot of music with a lot of substance is because a lot of his hardest hitting records are almost like lost media at this point, right? I told you guys about how the song Playing with Fire was replaced by P-Word Monster, which kind of fits the irony of this entire debate. But it goes a lot further than that. See, for the Carter 3, when Wayne was really at his peak lyrically, in my opinion, around 2007, he was recording what was supposed to be the original version of the Carter 3, and the entire thing basically got leaked. Like 40 plus songs, some of Wayne's best material, all scattered throughout the internet. This is really when I started going down the Wayne rabbit hole. I was 10 years old for this. And this, in my opinion, is where we got Wayne's best written music of all time. Or not written, since he doesn't write things down. But you go and look at songs like Trouble, Cry Out, Something You Forgot.
Ghetto birds still on us, government still quitting on us. Lost a few homies, and the grief still sitting on us. So we got their names written on us. White folks still spitting on us. And them bitch ass police K9s, T still gritting on us.
These were supposed to be the Carter 3, and I guarantee you, if the original Carter 3 actually ended up releasing, the discussion around Wayne would be a lot different, because aside from the, quote-unquote no substance criticism, the next biggest criticism that Wayne gets is that he's never put out a classic album, right? He doesn't have a College Dropout or a Get Rich or Die Trying. This original Carter 3, it would have been that. I mean, even what was supposed to be the first single of the Carter 3, La La, not the one that ended up making it on the Carter 3. There was a second, completely different song, also called La La. And that song definitely had substance to it. And that was supposed to be the first single off the Carter 3. It was songs like this, songs like his mixtape cuts, like The Sky's the Limit, feature verses like We Taking Over. It was all of these things combined that made the world believe that Wayne was the best rapper alive. The problem is that when you look back today, almost 20 years later, a lot of that material, a lot of those factors that, again, made Wayne the best rapper are now lost media. And because of the recency bias that a lot of people have, we don't remember this time. We don't remember this material. There were thousands of Wayne songs leaking back then. So was there a ton of stuff where he wasn't really saying much, just kind of flexing his lyrical abilities? 100%. But there was also some of the most important songs of his career-defining songs that were most definitely full of substance and are just not really discussed today because they're either on some Dat Piff mixtape that doesn't exist on streaming platforms, or it's one of the dozens of songs that was leaked in the Carter 3 era, or it's a feature on someone else's song like Hollywood Divorce, Lost by Gorilla Zoe, After Disaster with Joel Santana. Like, a lot of these songs that made Wayne the best rapper alive just got lost in the archives. And if they existed to be consumed in a more traditional fashion, like just posted on a streaming platform, the discussion about Wayne and his contribution to the game, I believe, would be a lot different. And yes, I know a lot of these mixtapes ended up finally on streaming platforms, but they were like a decade too late with that. And that gets me into another big point about Wayne's kind of weird legacy in the public eye, because I think his team is partly to blame for this perception. See, again, Wayne records, dozens of thousands of songs, right? I guarantee you today he can't name you 5 songs off the Carter 3. And that's just because the sheer volume of music he puts out, he just gives it to his team. They sift through it all and they decide what makes the final track list. Now, they haven't been too good at doing that since, I want to say, the Carter 4. Again, this is coming from someone who followed Wayne's career very closely. How they left songs like Jungle, I Don't Like It / Light, Kidnap Cupid, World on My Shoulders, all of these tracks that, 90% of Wayne fans have probably never even heard, were left off I'm Not a Human Being 2, but instead we got My Tongue is a Uzi, My D is an AK.
When I was young, I used to cry because I had dark skin. Martin Luther King gon' slap the out me when I die, man.
There was an interview somewhere, I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it for this video, but Wayne had spoke on in 2008 how after the success of Carter 3, he wanted to completely switch things up and go rock, right? And he had said that he told his team not to say a single thing about the direction he was taking things in. He had full creative control on that one. And I think that was, to be honest, a bit of a mistake because before Rebirth, we saw, probably Birdman, probably Cash Money's A&Rs have a very heavy hand in everything that Wayne put out. And it was a lot of quality, right? Carter 3, Carter 2, tons of substance on both those projects, in my opinion, right? You had, again, on Carter 3 alone, Let the Beat Build, Dr. Carter, Mr. Carter, Don't Get It, Tie My Hands, Shoot Me Down, Playing with Fire. Like, guys, that's half the track list for Wayne's, most iconic album of all time. And that's me being generous, not putting songs like Three-Peat, A Milli, Comfortable in the category of tracks of Wayne's that had substance, right? Anyways, you compare track lists like that to basically everything that came after Rebirth, and you could tell, like, there was an A&R missing in those offices, and the, track selection for Wayne's albums was being mismanaged, to say the least. Like, it was his childhood friends, right? I think it was Mac Main and Cortez Bryant, and now they're not even around, selecting the songs for Wayne albums, and they've just gotten worse and worse. The Carter 6, Funeral. And listen, sometimes they get it right. I would say singles like Mirror or How to Love off the Carter 4, those songs had substance to them. Drop the World off Rebirth with Eminem, like, that song had substance, but I mean, you look at those track lists and there's definitely a lot of filler on them. No denying that. But at the same time, if you were, again, really following Wayne, I know I'm going to sound like a broken record, but in that Rebirth era, when a lot of people were trashing on what Wayne did, you could just dig online and find songs like I Told Y'all, No Quitter, Go Getter. These songs were going diamond on YouTube in 2008, but the problem is they remained on YouTube, right? Or they remained on mixtapes. And when you go back and actually look at his full catalog on Apple Music, you see track lists like Rebirth or I'm Not a Human Being 2 or Carter 6, which kind of makes people who weren't really around to remember these mixtape cuts that, really defined Wayne's legacy back then. They're now left to think that, he was a talented punchline rapper without much depth and a lot of hits, but also a lot of misses. And look, Wayne is to blame for this as well, right? He's complaining about, not being nominated for any Grammys this year. He was complaining 12 years ago when I'm Not a Human Being 2 released that he was not nominated for any MTV awards, any BET awards. And he keeps saying, I'm going to work better and harder and be undeniable for you guys to, nominate me and all that stuff. He said the same thing after the Super Bowl, right? He said, I'm going to make sure I work so hard so they have to regret that they didn't give me that slot. In the end, what did we get? We got the Carter 6, guys. So I can't blame people who have recency bias, right? I said in a previous video that I think a big, tarnish to Wayne's legacy, or why Wayne's legacy is not remembered properly, is also because he was absent for a good chunk of the 2010s when all his little clones were kind of running around building this new era out, right? When the streaming era had emerged, Wayne was going through those legal battles with Cash Money during that whole period, and by the time he was finally, settled up in that lawsuit and able to actually release music, the landscape of music as we know it had changed. Spotify controlled consumption. All those Dat Piff mixtapes were long gone. There wasn't much novelty to what Wayne was bringing to the table because at that point in time, this is like 2018, everyone pretty much sounded like Wayne in one way or another by then. Because they grew up off those Carter 3 leaks. They grew up off those mixtapes. Those are no longer around. We're 10 years removed from even that point in time that I'm referencing, right? So with the recency bias people have, of course they're going to forget moments like that, right? But then you got guys like Chance the Rapper who not only just said that Wayne is the reason he's rapping, but he also said if he had to rank his favorite albums of all time, the Carter 3 would be in there twice. It wouldn't just be the actual Carter 3 album, but it'd also be what was supposed to be the original Carter 3, which is what I was telling you guys about earlier in this video. The Lost album that really had some of Wayne's best lyrical performances. His stuff with the most substance. And I mean, if I had to chalk it up, if you were a kid following Wayne in 2006 to 2008, I'd be surprised to hear you say that even reviewing those songs 10 years, 15 years later, that you didn't find any positive messaging or any substance within them, right? Was the messaging potentially delivered in an unconventional way? Of course. Like Wayne said, he's misunderstood. Like I said, Wayne is 3 decades in, and all he really knows is just being a rich, talented guy who's praised all the time, who has been in a recording studio since the age of 12, right? Of course, his perception of reality and the way he portrays that with his pen is going to be a little bit unconventional. That doesn't mean there's not a positive message or substance behind it, at least in my opinion. But again, I'm someone who followed Wayne's career very closely since the age of 10. And because of that, I could definitely realize that there were 3 massive factors as to why Wayne was the best rapper alive at one point. Number 1 was that feature run. Number 2 was that mixtape run. And number 3 was just the incredible quality and quantity of music we were getting from 2006 to around 2009. Again, a lot of this stuff came in the form of leaked songs. And even with his mixtapes and features, they never really existed properly on a streaming platform for people to have lived with them over the last 10, 15 years, right? Because Wayne's peak was over 15 years ago at this point. So for someone who wasn't really around back then, it'd be very easy to have either A, never heard of these songs, B, forgotten about a lot of these songs, or C, be so skewed by the vast amount of not so great subject matter that we got from Wayne over the years, because again, there were thousands of songs, that it would be very easy to forget about the songs that did pack a lot of substance. But again, as someone who followed Wayne since they were 10 years old, I do think that people who were around for Wayne's prime, when he was calling himself the best rapper alive and people genuinely believed it, it was those 3 factors that made him the GOAT. The features, the mixtapes, and the leaks. And it was on all of that music where we saw Wayne actually get really deep and actually deliver positive and thought-provoking messages. But because it's lost media, because it's kind of just assorted all throughout the ethos of the internet, it makes his catalog and his legacy a little hard to fully remember properly. And I think I was like in the middle of saying that earlier in this video where I said like some of the blame should go to Wayne. Like definitely if you're crying about not being invited to the Grammys or the Super Bowl, like it should be reasons like this that make you wake up and realize, oh wait, I'm still an amazing rapper and I have tons of songs with substance within them, but somehow they're just not usually getting officially released to the public, which is kind of a weird way to put it, but I think that's the best way to put it. Most Young Money members, specifically Drake and Nicki Minaj, who have been throwing temper tantrums on social media for the last year and a half, I would highly advise them to stay offline. But as for someone like Wayne, I actually think it'd be really positive for him to hop on social media and see the type of discourse around his legacy and his name at this point in time. Because if there's one person who still possesses the ability to be one of the sharpest lyricists in the game, it's Lil Wayne. Yes, still to this day, he just needs proper direction. I'll say it a million times. I've said it in a million videos. Go listen to his verse on the AZ record. Go listen to his verses on the Griselda records. Go listen to his song Bars with 2 Chainz, or his song Mad with Solange, or Bloody Mary with Joel Santana. BB King or Seeing Green with Drake. Mona Lisa with Kendrick Lamar. When he's paired with the right collaborator and the right producer, Wayne shows you he's still a top tier lyricist. So I'm hoping he kind of sees some of this discourse. And really, since I'm not a human being too, I've been hoping the MC that I grew up thinking was the best rapper alive comes and proves to the world why he still might be. And while the glimmer of hope for him to do so has most definitely shrunk since I was that 11-year-old kid, I'll always still defend that 11-year-old kid being in awe of the subject matter he was listening to on that Carter 3 album, or all the leaks and mixtapes leading up to it, or the Carter 2, the first album I ever bought, which left me confused on why one copy of the album had a little sticker that said parental advisory, and the one I was allowed to buy didn't have it. And the irony of it all is that even with the quote-unquote explicit content being stripped from that copy of the Carter 2 I had, it still made me fall in love with and be highly inspired by Wayne's music. And I never thought that that would kickstart the rabbit hole that would lead me to 20 years later defending all that music that inspired me as a kid. But hey, here we are, and it's a blessing to be here. So if you're still here, I love you very much. And let me know in the comments, what was the first album that you ever bought, and how did it inspire you? And if it wasn't a physical CD, what was it? A cassette tape, a vinyl, or am I talking to a kid here who's never even heard of a CD? Whoever you are, thank you for being here, and let me know what you guys think. And I'll catch you in the next one.
I study
Rapaholics
for a living.